What's up, guys? It's G here, and welcome back to the Grizzly Life Podcast. In today's episode, Colton dives into the real estate side of Grizzly Fitness, specifically talking about the current Grizzly Fitness Berlin location and how purchasing that building all worked out. Also in this episode, Colton and Chase get into some supplement talk, sharing what they believe are the most effective and beneficial supplements for anyone and everyone. New episodes drop every Tuesday and Thursday, so make sure to subscribe, follow, and turn on notifications. Now let's get into episode 13 of the Grizzly Life Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to the Grizzly Life Podcast. We've got Colton here with us. We got Garrett in the producer chair, as per usual. Colton, I'm just going to kick it over to you right away. I'm going to let you get your drop in. What do you got for us?
Yo, everybody. We appreciate you tuning in to episode 13 of many. I'm going to start this episode off with, if you've never been here before, sorry, I'm kind of saying this a little goofy, but if you've never tuned into our podcast before, please go back and listen to episodes 1 through 4, at least episodes 1 through 4. I think it's interesting to listen to all of them so far, but if this is your first episode, at least go back and listen to episodes 1 through 4. They're our first 4 episodes we ever produced, but they're also our story, where it all began, how we got to where we are now, and all that kind of stuff. So go back, episodes 1 through 4, memorize them. If you want to have a conversation with me about business, I hope that you have listened to episodes 1 through 4 so you kind of know a little bit about me before we get into this. Anyways, that being said, my name's Colton Burt. I am 26 years old, turning 27 in May. I own 6 fitness centers, 5 of which I own outright. They are called Grizzly Fitness in the towns of Berlin, Princeton, Watoma, Amro, and Rosendale. And our 6th location is O-Town Iron, now Grizzly O-Town, in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, partners with Jacob Colburn. Our fitness facilities specialize in really cool gym equipment that you don't see every day, but also local small community gyms that give back to the community and keep fitness as a staple in our small towns and that kind of stuff. We also operate a business called Priority Fitness. This is kind of how everything got started. Priority Fitness is a fitness equipment install, extraction, sales, service, basically anything fitness equipment related we do. We install gym equipment for commercial facilities like the YMCAs. We service treadmills inside of the Anytime Fitnesses and stuff like that. We go to residences and fix their gym equipment there. We will move equipment from your basement to your friend's basement, all of that kind of stuff. I also own 4 pieces of real estate, 3 of which our gyms occupy, and they are the renters of those facilities. And property number 4 is semi-vacant. We do have a tenant in there now that does some fitness stuff in there as well. But we do have a 4th property. It is not very well utilized at the moment, but we do have plans for it in the future. We're just not sure what direction we're going to go. So that is a brief on me. Go back and listen to episodes 1 through 4, and you'll kind of know how this has all come to be. But that is what
You do.
That is what I do. And so this is the Grizzly Life Podcast. The point of this podcast is to be kind of a higher arcing idea, mentality, lifestyle, kind of a behind the scenes of what we do on a day-to-day basis within all of the businesses, how we go about building leaders, how we manage finances, just kind of a little bit of everything. And it's supposed to be a little bit taken away from Grizzly Fitness. Grizzly Fitness is part of the Grizzly Life, but you don't have to be a member at one of our gyms to be a part of the Grizzly Life, if that makes sense. You can be a part of the movement, the Grizzly Life movement, the way of living, changing your goals and habits, becoming the best version of you, becoming 1% better, all of those kind of mentalities that we talk about on this podcast. So without further ado, we will get this episode going. I think we've got a couple questions today, but I'm going to kick it back over to Chase and see where we're starting.
Yeah, actually, just back to what we were talking about there, what you kind of closed on with your brief on yourself. You mentioned that we own some of the Grizzly locations outright, and the businesses rent the real estate. But what does that look like? If you go back to the early episodes, you mentioned that Berlin specifically is a land contract. So I haven't ever dealt with anything like that. I can't imagine a lot of the viewers have dealt with anything like that. So what does that look like? How do you tackle that in business?
Yeah, it's a good question. Our Berlin property was the first facility we purchased. We purchased it in 2020.
Yep.
So we purchased it in 2020. I'm not going to go too crazy in depth about like the story of Berlin itself. That is on some of our early episodes as how that deal played out. But to answer your question, it's kind of more of like a finance related question and like how did it come about? How did we make it work? So we bought this property due to some other unforeseen circumstances with our other Berlin property that we were renting at the time in 2020 and 2019 and 2018. But we approached this owner within like 30 days of finding this listing. Actually, within like 2 weeks of finding this listing, we approached the owner, took a tour, loved the building, blah, 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 right? Typical stuff. What we did, though, and how we structured the deal is called a land contract. And so the building was a 40-year wood workshop. They like refinished wood and reclaimed wood and all that kind of stuff. So the building was an absolute mess as far as sawdust goes and that kind of stuff. But that's aside the point. We met with the owner and, he had a realtor. It was listed online. So we couldn't make a deal directly with the owner because the realtor is involved. That's just how it works. You can't really go around them. You can't really go around them because they're under contract to sell the property through a realtor and that kind of stuff. But we approached with a land contract offer, and what a land contract does is it allows us to put some money down now and make basically monthly payments and then do a balloon payment later. Luckily, we sold a bunch of, if you guys have listened to early episodes, what I used to do is buy and sell gym equipment and flip gym equipment, that kind of stuff. So I saved up a decent amount of money that I could use as a down payment for this property. The reason we also went a land contract route is because I didn't have any crazy like credit. I didn't have any proof of like getting a loan before. And now this is kind of like a business investment, it's an investment property, that kind of stuff. So I didn't really have the means to get a loan for a property like that. So we worked the deal out with the owner. We did a land contract. We basically put a lump sum of cash down, and this specific land contracts can be different. You can have different terms. It can be a 6 month, it can be a year, 2 years, 5-year land contract, basically whatever you want, as long as you guys are in agreement. But we did a 1-year land contract, money down, and then monthly payments for 12 months. And then at the end of 12 months is what's called the balloon payment. A balloon payment is just the outstanding balance on the property. So for example, let's say the property is $1 million and you put $500,000 down because you're just loaded, and you're going to pay $1,000 a month for 12 months. You're at $488. You've got a balloon payment of $488. Now there is like some interest involved in that kind of stuff, depending on how the deal is structured. So it might not be that simple of math. There might be a 3%, 5%, 7%, whatever the going rate is. There will be some interest on there as well. So that'll play into effect on what your true payments are and that kind of stuff. But the land contract's really good for people who don't have the means to get a loan, or don't want to go through a bank right now, or maybe you think that maybe like the mortgage rates are going to go down in a year, 2 years, or 3 years time, and maybe you can cut a better deal with the owner now. Maybe the owner doesn't want all of the money up front. Maybe the owner, we've worked other deals, and sometimes what happens is they don't want a lump sum of cash now due to capital gains tax. Depending on who's in office, depending on what's going on in the world, there might be you might be thinking capital gains tax is going to change drastically. I don't know a lot about it, but so, one of our other deals, the same thing. We got a land contract deal because they didn't want the money up front due to capital gains and all that kind of stuff. So there's plenty of ways to get creative about it. This specific deal, we did a 1 year, and what's even sweeter is we actually paid it. We cut a deal like 2 months early before our land contract was done on this one. And since we did that, it's kind of just like a little side story, but when the guy that we bought it from, when he bought the property 20 years before us, they must have had some similar deal worked out. He actually paid for it. He bought the property, and I think he must have done like a land contract, and he paid for it. Let's say he paid it out 3 months before. Sorry, I'm all over the place. He must have paid off the deal 3 months before it was due, and that owner actually gave him like a discount on the building for doing that. It was just more of like a, hey, I wish you the best, and keep $10,000, whatever. So this owner actually approached us and said the same thing. Hey, Colton, if you pay us off on month 9 or month 10, for example, I will actually give you X dollars off the purchase price, right? It was very genuine, very awesome. I didn't even expect that. He said, this is what happened for me when I bought the property 20 years ago. So I'd like to carry it on to you. I wish you the best. And so it was an all-around great deal for us. But yes, that is how we structure that deal, land contract. I don't know if that answers kind of your question or if you have more questions off of that, but that is how that deal worked.
I know it makes sense. I mean, like you said, it's like a mortgaging payment, except it's obviously your mortgages eventually they just fizzle out and then you're just paying property tax. But in that case, it's obviously like you mentioned, in the case of whatever you end up putting down, and then obviously you have to pay off with a remaining balance and then whatever tax rate that looks like on that and interest rate.
Let me add too, we did not have the means to get a loan day one, and so that's why we went the land contract route. At the end of that term, we have the balloon payment. By that point, we got a loan for that balloon payment to pay the rest of that building off. So at that point, we took a loan out, signed off on the land contract, went through a bank for all of that stuff. But that is how we did do that whole deal for our Berlin property. So everybody's on the same page there. So the balloon payment could have been in cash if we had the cash. But for this example, we did go through the bank for that kind of stuff. So anyways, that is how we acquired our first property. Kind of learned as I went, but land contract's a good option. You can buy homes that way as well. In the market today, in today's day and age, homes sell very quickly. People aren't interested in doing land contracts. They just want their money up front. They want to go buy and sell another house, whatever they're doing. So anyways, that is that.
Next topic I believe we have here for us then. You touched on it a bit in the other Q&A episodes when you were talking about diet, exercise, nutrition, everything kind of under that umbrella. But I believe we're both going to bring in a couple of, whether it's supplements or different aids or vitamins or other cases, just go back and forth here. Obviously, you've done a fair bit of research yourself. Like you mentioned, you go a more organic route of things and have done some research into what's going to help you best perform, whether that be in the gym or just day in and day out. And then on my side of things, so if you want to start here, what does, say, supplements look like for you, given your lifestyle? What do you do for supplements?
Sure. So I will relate to like the carnivore diet because that's what I talk about on here. They claim on the carnivore diet you don't really need to supplement, in quotations. I don't necessarily believe that, but so I take a lot of different things just because I choose to, and I take a lot of things in their singular form. So I have 10 different bottles of things I take, but it's like vitamin C, vitamin D, and K2 and stuff like that. But I'll stick to like the 3 to 5 things that like I think everybody could take and that I also take on the carnivore. First and foremost, I feel like a multivitamin is extremely valuable to anybody and everybody. A good methylated multivitamin, something that our bodies can actually break down. And I don't know the perfect terminology, but I know when the multivitamin is methylated, our body can do more with it and use the actual ingredients that are in there. So it's important to get a methylated multivitamin. I don't know terms enough to tell you more than that, but I know if you're going to get a multivitamin, make sure it's methylated. Don't just get the cheapest thing. That will allow your body to absorb those nutrients and minerals better and do what they're supposed to do with that. So a multivitamin is kind of a number one thing that I recommend. Another one that I take a lot of, and Chase is the fitness director and fitness coach, so I'm hoping that maybe he can throw some stuff here too. But I'll name a couple of the ones I've got. I'll let him talk, and then maybe he can also feed off of what I'm saying. But multivitamin, number one. Number two, creatine. I feel like that's a easy one. That's a low-hanging fruit. Everybody should be taking creatine. 15 years ago, everybody was like, oh, creatine, it's scary. It's, you can't take it if you're in sports, or it's basically like steroids. Like, none of that stuff's true. We've had enough. It's been around long enough now. There's enough study out there, enough research. Like, everybody can benefit from creatine. The mental clarity aspect, the brain fog, the focus, the muscle, the water retention, like everything that it does for you is generally pretty good. People are concerned about taking creatine and then gaining water weight. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, I think the water weight's fine. I think it's actually good for your muscles and that kind of stuff. But creatine, good thing. Take it. Multivitamin, creatine, I also am a big fish oil and magnesium guy. Do your own research on fish oils. I know like some of those fish oils you can buy, you can get like 3, 6, and 9 or all this stuff. I don't think they're all that important. I can't remember what I take, but I know like maybe it's like omega
3 or something.
Omega 3s, I think is like, maybe like the most important. I think that's what I take. So a good fish oil, I think everybody can benefit from, does not matter. Maybe if you have a high fish diet, like you can get around it. But even then, like fish oil is always a great supplement for joint pain and, basically kind of like keeping all your pivots lubed up, your joints and all that kind of stuff. I'm also a big magnesium guy.
You feel like, I guess, do you really remember a time before you were taking magnesium? Like, did you get better quality sleep out of it or any better skin or bone health, anything along those lines?
I started taking magnesium for the sleeping aspect. I'm generally a pretty good sleeper, but I started taking a bunch of things all at the same time. So I didn't really do like one thing to try it and see like if I noticed anything drastically. But I am the type of so I take TMG and magnesium and zinc all kind of as like a sleep aid. Obviously, do not take melatonin. If you're one of those people who takes melatonin, figure out how to get off of that because your body naturally produces that and it's not good. Melatonin drugs are a fake and oftentimes a placebo. I could go on melatonin for a while, but get off melatonin if you take it. You don't need it. Zinc, magnesium, and TMG are the 3 things that I take for sleep. They're not like going to make you drowsy. They're not that. They just help. Like I take them in the morning when I eat breakfast and that kind of stuff. But like what TMG is supposed to do is when you close your eyes, I'm the type of guy who gets a lot of thoughts and ideas right before I go to bed. My brain opens, I close my eyes and now I'm just like, well, I got all these ideas. So I've noticed taking TMG, magnesium, and zinc regularly, it allows me to just like fall asleep more peacefully. My latency is a lot less. Sometimes I could take 30, 40 minutes to fall asleep because I got ideas. The idea behind those are to just close your eyes and be able to sleep when it's time to sleep and that kind of stuff. So I was only trying to talk about magnesium. I started taking it for the sleep aspect, but TMG and zinc I also take as well. So I don't know if that's already like 3, 4, 5 different supplements, but
TMG, zinc, magnesium, creatine.
I'm not counting TMG and
not counting TMG and zinc.
And zinc. Those just got added in there as my sleep aid. But
I gotcha.
I'm trying to think if there's one other. You got your fish oil, your multivitamin, your creatine, magnesium. I think is another important one, and then vitamin C. I think I take a lot of. I think vitamin C is really good. I think is that like immune health and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think it's really good for that aspect. A lot of people get sick and that kind of stuff. I believe in the carnivore. It's a no inflammation diet. You don't have. I believe like sugars is what makes you sick a lot. Like people who ingest a lot of sugars and keep sugars in your body. I feel like it's hard to get sick on the carnivore. That's what they claim at least. I'm not ingesting that kind of stuff. I'm not ingesting things that are bad for my body and that stuff. So I think sugar is just an all-around bad thing to keep in your system. We could probably talk about that forever, but vitamin C is good for your immune health and that kind of stuff, your immune support. I don't know. I take like a lot of different stuff, but vitamin C I would also throw in there as a very important one if you want to stay healthy and that kind of stuff. So I'll leave it there. You can ask any questions. You might ask a really smart question that I have no idea how to answer. So be careful in your questioning.
To your point of sugar, are you focusing more on just like added sugars or artificials?
I mean, yes, but I'm also like anti-fruit kind of. So I don't know.
That's what the multivitamin's for though. Like at the end of the day, like you're
getting a lot of like I mean, I have a very interesting take on like fruits and vegetables, and I think it's easy to overeat on natural sugars as well. Like it's super easy to like eat 2 apples or an apple banana. Like I think
there's a balance with it. Like people like maybe not binge on fruit, but it's like especially if you do like a naked juice or one of those where it might all be natural, but it's also because it's all been blended down and it's almost like so much more palatable and consumable. Like you can get a crap load of natural sugar, but your carbs are so high and there was no fat, but there's not like protein in there either.
There's also an interesting take too on fruits. When you eat them in their like normal form versus blending them, you actually ingest them differently, and or your body does different things. Like a blended banana versus a normal banana, or your fruit shake when you blend all of your berries up, and you actually aren't supposed to blend them. Like your body doesn't do everything they're supposed to do with them. They actually come into the body slightly differently, which is weird. You don't think like that, but there's some. I'm not smart enough to give you like, I can cite this or that, but I know I've done very little research, and by blending things and drinking them versus eating them in their form, the way your body takes it all in and utilizes it is actually slightly different. And so it's an interesting...
preparation matters. Like eggs is another one too. Like the whole thing of like Rocky doing the raw eggs isn't like you should cook your eggs.
Yeah.
Like you're getting better synthesis out of it and you're getting more out of the food than if you ate it in its raw form.
Right.
So it's all different for everything. Like some stuff you should prepare, some stuff you just eat raw.
I don't think if you, my take on like fruits and veggies as well is eat whatever's in season. Not if you live in Wisconsin, you can only eat what we can grow in Wisconsin here right now. But I don't know when watermelon season is, right? But if you can eat watermelon all season round, that's probably not a great thing. And I'm saying that from like we genetically modify some foods, us as humans and that kind of stuff. So I can't give you an exact example, but let's say potatoes in Idaho are only grown for like, the fall months or the summer months or whatever it is out there. I have no idea. And we're eating them like all year round because that's what we do. Like there's just kind of a interesting thought of like living off the land and eating when things are in season, because I believe that we genetically modify a lot of things. Non-organic, making sure things are like the right color so they're appealing to the human eye and that kind of stuff. So it's just kind of an interesting thought there too, eating fruits and veggies that are in season. I don't know if you've heard that or if you've thought about that as well, but
I don't know. I haven't gone to that extent on it for the most part. Like on a very, especially like when going through nutrition, like say with a new client especially, I'm not going to the degree of like, or you never ate fruit before, but now you should only eat the watermelon that we just grew in the spring. Like,
right.
I don't know. I haven't gone to that degree where it is. You're on a far more organic side of things, like seeing like if it's like true sugars or is it modified. Like I guess I don't go to that extent. I was curious more so on the sugar side, just like with since doing this marathon training running side of things, I'm a lot more cognizant now of like say the carbs I do intake, or especially like that my muscle glycogen's good. Like I'm not just eating strictly protein, or that I have some glycogen in my system. Like, I guess is that something that ever dawns on you or crosses your mind when you're thinking about like, obviously like you can have protein intake and obviously that's still fueling your body too. And you can protein resynthesize, and your body can repurpose that into glycogen. I was just curious if you had any like 2 cents on that.
No, I don't. Going back to my original statement of like sugars are bad and they make you sick and that kind of stuff, I do think it's a lot of like the artificials and the added sugars and that kind of stuff, or like the sugar alcohols and all that stuff. I don't think eating fruit is a bad thing. If you do eat fruit, I think fruit is one of the most important things to eat organically, only because of the way the membrane is, right? Like it remembers, I don't know the right terminology, but like basically when things get sprayed, the crops get sprayed by the farmers and that kind of stuff, the fruits have like a certain kind of membrane that remember, basically. I don't know how, I'm sounding probably very stupid, but it's very important to go more organic on your fruits than anything else out there. Something to do with the way when it's getting sprayed and that kind of stuff by crops and the pesticides in that aspect. So, but I do think fruits are okay to eat. I'm not saying I'm anti-fruit, really. I mean, I just think it's easy to overeat on those sugars as well. I think having too many fruits is still a bad thing. I think having 3 or 4 apples a day is probably not a good thing. I think in moderation, it's all okay. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're looking at it from like a balanced diet side of things, obviously your meats, depending on how lean it is, like you could obviously get cuts of beef that are super high protein content, low fat content. And you can look at fruit almost the same except for carbs. Like fruit for the most part is just strictly carbs. There's some protein content, no fat content, but obviously you can't just strictly gorge out on carbs. Like you need protein, you need fat in your diet. Technically you can live without carbs, hence why carnivore works. But like you said, and that's everything. Like you should do everything in moderation for that matter. But I guess I was looking at more on the side of like, especially for those who are like ultra endurance athletes or endurance athletes, like I think you should still obviously have some type of carb intake, obviously assuming it's natural. Like obviously you can intake artificial sugars, like your body will break them down super fast. If you're going to burn it off right away, like they obviously give athletes Gatorade and all like those supplements. So that's one side of things. Yeah. But in your case, like you mentioned, if you're on say carnivore where it's a bit more restrictive, and or even say you're a bodybuilder and it's a bit more restrictive, I think a multivitamin is good. Like obviously I'll kind of bring up this point too I was going to make, because I'll mention a lot more things that are highly, what's the word I'm looking for? highly processed but actually beneficial to you. Obviously, a multivitamin isn't a natural thing. Like you're extracting a ton of different vitamins and stuff from different sources, but it's still very good for your health. Like you mentioned, if you're in carnivore, you're not getting certain vitamins or certain minerals. Like you're getting that from that thing, and it's beneficial to your health. Same thing, and I'm going to dive into some of the supplements that I think you should look at. I'm going to go from more of, say, a performance side of things, like, say, in the gym. Same thing with protein powder. Like, obviously, that's very common. It's very popular. It's obviously supplements are very buyer beware. Like, do your research on different brands. Like, see that they obviously are third-party tested, all those things along those lines. But, like, protein powder is another thing that's highly processed because it's got a crap load of carbs extracted from it from, say, whey. A bunch of the milk sugars are extracted from it. So you get a ton of protein, but it's very low content of carbs, low content of fat. You can obviously play around with that if you get an isolate or concentrate and everything. I always kind of recommend whey protein to people. I think your body just processes it the best, or at least you can utilize the most of it. I mean, you can look in certain textbooks and you can have your opinion on, obviously, if you're lactose intolerant, hell, you can go for a vegan protein. You can go for pea or soy, whatever works best for you. But if your body handles it, you can go for whey. But I guess what kind of insight do you have on that as far as protein's concerned?
I just have a question for you, like for the listeners. Whey, when they talk like whey isolate versus like whey, what is when they say like blank isolate, beef isolate, whey isolate, whatever? What is the difference? And like,
if you
because they say like isolate's like the thing, right? Like that's like, oh, that's the premier. You pay more for whey isolate than you do whey, right?
Yeah, you're basically paying for it's pretty marginal. Like if you have a pretty balanced diet and you're just taking in assuming you're not like a competitive bodybuilder and like the smallest fractional calories matter, I don't think it matters too much. It's just the protein content, like by calories essentially, which is already so high in regular whey protein. Like if you look at the stuff we have on the shelves, like Rule 1, for example, it's like a 10 or 15 calorie difference and you're getting the same protein content. They're just extracting more of the carbs out of it. So
okay.
Same idea if you went for something different. It's just how concentrated is that protein source. It's the same thing for pea, it's the same thing for soy, just how much of the carb they've extracted or fat they've extracted. So if you're not taking protein powder, it's not the end of the world. Like if you have a balanced diet, especially like say carnivore where you're getting so much protein content in, it's probably almost more overkill. But if you're struggling, like say you're on a vegan side of things, it could be a very good option for you if you're going for a vegan protein brand. That would probably be my first recommendation. To talk creatine, kind of like you mentioned, I know you obviously mentioned, say, some of the benefits of it. For those of you that aren't taking it, like Colton mentioned, it's so highly researched at this point. Like there's no debunking it. Like it simply works. If you look at some papers, they'd say, like, how should you take it? When should you take it? Like for what gender, it doesn't make a difference. I recommend it to both male and female clients almost regardless of what the goal is.
Does age matter?
I wouldn't say so, no. With
maybe like maybe not like if you're 5 years old.
I take that back. They do say you should be 18 just before you try anything along those lines, but not to say it's safe, but there's obviously high school kids that go on to be obviously collegiate athletes and they're probably taking themselves that much further. That's not me recommending that. It's just the fact of the matter that if there's the potential to do so, there probably is someone doing it, obviously. But at the end of the day, creatine is naturally occurring. Like it's in your diet, obviously, especially in your diet. Like you probably are maxing out your creatine stores and taking the 5 grams a day. It's probably just furthering your chances to maximize those stores if you're not already. But as far as taking it, you can take just 5 grams in the morning. Like, again, I take it with breakfast, kind of like you mentioned. If you're taking it over the long haul of things, like say in 1 month's time, someone who does like a loading phase where they take like 20 grams every day over the course of a week, they'll saturate their muscles more with creatine, but you can take 5 grams a day. And after 4 weeks, like let's say I did loading of 20 grams a day for a week and you did 5 grams a day every day. After a month, we'd be in the same spot. So in the long haul of things, it doesn't matter how you go about it. If you're doing a loading phase, though, break it up throughout the day. Otherwise, you're going to pee out about 15 grams of creatine early in the morning if that's what you did. But it's just going to help you, say if you're, again, lifting weights, it's going to give you an extra rep or two that you weren't getting before. You're going to progress that much faster in your lifts. So I really can't recommend it enough. I think it's awesome. You don't have to cycle off it. Like, you could take 5 grams a day forever. Like, it's not like caffeine where you build up a tolerance. Like, your muscles either are saturated with it or not, and you either get the benefit of it or not. So, I know we just mentioned last episode, you said you were off caffeine for a while, or at least the last like 10 days or so. Do you, because obviously it's a very, like, people are very non-stimulant, like very natural side of things, or like they go like green leaf tea extract or all, again, the natural sources of caffeine. What are your kind of 2 thoughts on caffeine?
Before 2 weeks ago-ish, I mean, I love caffeine. I think caffeine's fine, but I also think people use and abuse a lot of those things, like a lot of those, in quotations, miracle drugs, you call them. The caffeine, I'm going to start doing a lot of my own research on caffeine, and I do want to have a nice long episode on like my thoughts on caffeine and what I really think about it. I feel like I have mixed emotions on whether caffeine's good or bad, whether it helps you live longer, live shorter. I was doing some research lately on like adenosine, and what adenosine is like the sleep pressure. Are you familiar with adenosine a little bit? Do you know what adenosine is?
Not to have a super at-length conversation.
The only thing that I've learned recently is that like how caffeine works on the brain, right? And so you have your circadian rhythm and you have adenosine. And when you wake up, your circadian rhythm is your body clock, right? You wake up and you want to go to bed at 9 o'clock every night, 10 o'clock at night. Your body just has a normal rhythm to it, a 24-hour clock. It's not exactly 24 hours, but it's very close. And then there's adenosine. And as soon as you wake up, your adenosine is at the lowest possible point. And then as you go on throughout the day, your adenosine is always rising. It's always rising. It's always rising. It's called sleep pressure. That's why throughout the day you proceed to get more and more tired. Then when you're ready for bed, the sleep pressure is built up. You're ready to sleep. You fall asleep. Then adenosine wears off while you're sleeping. So what caffeine does is when you take it, if you do take caffeine, take it in the morning. Don't be taking it at 4 or 5 o'clock because the caffeine half-life is like 8 hours. So if I take 200 milligrams at noon and I go to bed at 8 p.m., you still have 100 milligrams potentially that your body's trying to break down and get rid of. Hence why you're probably not sleeping great. A lot of people don't point their finger at the caffeine because they're like, oh, I didn't have any since 10 in the morning. Well, you probably had a 350 milligram drink from Starbucks because that's what you needed, or the Rain energy drink or whatever. You had 2 coffees today. It's an 8-hour half-life. So it takes a long time to get out of your system. So if you're going to wake up, I also believe don't take caffeine within the first hour due to, I can't remember the term, but wait the first full hour due to something that's building up when you're first waking up. So after the first hour, you take your cup of coffee or, sometime mid-morning, but don't afternoon try to sure, 100 milligram, little 70 milligram cup of coffee, whatever. But so anyways, back to adenosine. What happens is you take caffeine and it blocks your receptors at the adenosine, like your adenosine receptors or like the receptors that adenosine attaches to. So what happens is the caffeine blocks those receptors. You feel great. You're talking all fast and everything's working. Your brain feels connected. That caffeine wears off. You have that adenosine was still building up that entire time, which is called it's sleep pressure. It's the pressure. And so once that caffeine wears off and you feel like you've got a caffeine crash, it's because all that adenosine comes and hits you at one point. So now you felt like you're on top of the world and the sleep pressure wasn't building up, even though it was. Caffeine wears off, sleep pressure hits you. You want to take a nap because you're like, oh, wow, that caffeine crash is horrible. So that's just kind of like what is actually happening when you take caffeine. For those of you that don't know, it's just your adenosine that's being blocked temporarily from actually feeling on you. So there's a little insight there. I can't remember. I'll do more research. There's something else that happens in the first hour of sleep that you're not supposed to take caffeine right away. It's right on the tip of my tongue too, but I just can't think of the word. But basically, it's not like your cortisol levels, but something's going on in the first hour that's good to kind of let happen naturally. And then, but my take on caffeine, I don't have a good insight on it at this point. I think it's used and abused too often. I think people overuse it. I don't think people realize that drinking 2 energy drinks a day really isn't good for you long term. Caffeine is one of those things that you will build up a tolerance to, which isn't great. So limiting that, not getting addicted to, I think coffee or green tea extract or whatever is probably the best form of caffeine. I think there's a lot of man-made products out there like these energy drinks that we're all taking that aren't the best for you, but I'm not one to judge. Do whatever you want with your life. I don't like to take energy drinks anymore. I used to be addicted to them. I love coffee as well.
Or say Rain Energy. Hell, when I joined PF, Rain Energy was like
That was a
going
must.
out of style.
If you got in the truck, you had to have a Rain Energy drink. We packed the truck 5 or 6 guys, as many as we could fit, and everybody had to have a Rain in their hand. If they didn't, I don't think they were working for us. So
that was a quality experience.
I'm very aware of the energy drink game and the coffee and all that stuff. I'll do my own research and kind of give a better insight on that. But right now, I'm currently kind of studying sleep cycles and understanding how caffeine affects sleep and that stuff. So the half-life is very important. You're ripping a soda or a coffee or whatever at 2 PM and you're not getting the best sleep, or you can't fall asleep very easily, or like everybody, I just couldn't sleep. So I started looking at my phone. It's like, hey, like, let's look at what we're doing in our patterns here. But I don't know. I don't know if coffee's or caffeine's necessarily bad, but certain ways of taking in caffeine, like Red Bull or Rain, I don't know. Good thing our podcast, I don't know. Could we get in trouble if our podcast was massive and we start throwing shots at like companies like that?
No, I'd bring him on.
That'd be fine.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was like a Logan Paul thing, like if that'd be like defamation because he's got such a large brand that if we're like saying don't drink this brand, that they could try to sue us, We're obviously very small, so we don't have to worry about that, but
No, we're gonna get sponsored.
Yeah, cool.
I guess I'll play devil's advocate on the flip side of things. Like, as far as just what research shows, again, it's ever evolving. Like, there's new papers coming all the time, but caffeine is like one of the few things that you can truly like put pen to paper and say it does improve performance. Again, this is more strictly from a physical side of things, like a muscle building side of things. The range is pretty wide when you really consider it. They say you can take anywhere from 3 to 9 milligrams per like kilogram of body weight. So in my case, if I'm like a 220-pound dude, therefore I'm 100 kgs, you could take 900 milligrams of caffeine and improve performance. Would I recommend that? No. Most of the research happens, I think, within the 3 to 6 range. So there are generally people taking like 500 or 600 milligrams though, which that's like a venti coffee at Starbucks for reference, with probably a shot of espresso. But there is some recent research coming out as well though, and there's not enough papers to say it for certain or completely disprove that, like, say caffeine doesn't improve performance in the gym. But there's actually some research where they had some people who were like very avid caffeine users, and I don't know if you'd say addicts at that rate, but they had them take a placebo. They told them they were drinking caffeine, but it was actually a decaf or something along those lines, like say it was coffee. And they had the flip side of things where non-regular caffeine users took what they thought to be like regular coffee, but there was actually no caffeine content in it. So they both just got the wool pulled over their eyes. The people that thought they drank caffeine, but it was actually decaf, saw like no performance improvement, and actually they saw a crash, kind of like you mentioned, and they had so this is going more to a placebo side of things. And people that thought they had coffee like they normally do, like they had nothing in their system and they just boosted their mood. So you can kind of do a difference in that and see like what the difference is in those two groups and see, again, how much real difference there is. But at that rate, obviously there is some placebo in it too. Like you just kind of taking your coffee in the morning, like, again, you could probably give someone who's an avid coffee drinker a decaf and they just need like the repetition of it to kind of boost their energy or their mood. But that being said, I do still think there's some merit to caffeine. I mean, every pre-workout has it for that matter that is a stimulant variant of it, but I'm not going to say you definitely have to, or if you are taking it, you can obviously get a resilience built up to it, so don't take it every day for that matter.
Yeah, that's kind of I think caffeine's fine. Like, I think you have to be careful on how you're taking it, but like coffee and green tea extract or whatever, I think those things are fine, just in moderation, like, am I taking 3 a day? Do I wake up needing it? Like, do I wake up, my eyes open, I'm like, oh, I need my coffee? Or am I able to like live and function and like I can use it to my benefit for improving my fitness or my performance or whatever, So I think it's just important to like understand you. I'm happy that I'm not on it right now just to see how my body reacts. I'm not going to see somebody with a coffee and look at them like in shame or like, why are you doing that? Like, caffeine is one of those things I'll probably still end up using it. I just want to give myself 2 to 4, 6 weeks. It's one of those like tough things like we talked about last episode. I want it. So I want to like just practice not wanting it, like I just want to like push myself to do the hard thing and try to not need it, you know what I mean?
So in your case, obviously you have a very routine morning. Like generally speaking, your mornings look very similar, assuming there's not something business-wise going on. And for a while there, it was always like breakfast, Colombian in the morning. Do you think you did it more on the fact of you're like, I just need the caffeine. And you're, again, like you said, you're a very like no caffeine afternoon type of guy. Do you think it was just like part of the routine at that point, or do you think you were reliant on the caffeine?
I honestly think I was more addicted to the taste, to be honest. Like, I think I just was like a routine of like the flavor and like the repetitions of that, like the routine of like, I don't know.
You're waiting for the bitterness to come your way.
I do like the caffeine, the way my brain does function afterwards. I feel like I can just talk a million miles an hour and I've got all these ideas and I can write them down and accomplish more. So it's been interesting with brain fog like the last week and a half, trying to like accomplish all the same things. But I think it's a good challenge as well. But I don't know. I don't know. I think it just turned into a routine, and it was like I was so addicted to like I didn't wake up needing it. Like I work out beforehand, I get it after my workout, so I wasn't using it for like performance or like needing to wake up. It was just like, well, I got my workout in, now let me like go purchase a coffee for like the fact of I like buying my coffee because I like the exchange of money for like that, I guess, which is kind of weird, but I felt like I want to buy a coffee, not just make a coffee at home, even though it's just like BP coffee and it's not like anything great. But I don't know. I think it's just more of like the reward and the flavor, and I guess all of it just kind of like, I don't know.
Would you ever do decaf, or you don't like the flavor that much?
Decaf is interesting. Decaf doesn't actually necessarily mean no caffeine.
It's just
less caffeinated, right?
Yeah.
So like, no, I don't think so. I mean, like I like the flavor, right? So my answer should be yes, but I don't know.
I guess I would say those are kind of my big three for that most part. Then would be like, if you are looking for improved performance, get the most out of your workouts. In my case of things, protein powder, I'm going to lean whey, but do whatever works best for you. Creatine, caffeine, I would lean in the multivitamin as well. Like Colton mentioned, it's kind of just an insurance policy at that point. If you're getting in those vitamins already, that's fine. For the most part, you're probably not going to hit a toxic level on any of those things. And then what I'd also recommend, like you said, fish oil. If you're eating fish like once or twice a week, you're probably in fine shape, where again, it's just an insurance policy. But in Wisconsin here, it's very popular. I don't know if there's a lot of people that would have to take fish oil for how much fatty fish they do eat, but
yeah, well, fried fish.
Yeah.
I would like to add to one of my most taken supplements is sodium.
Yeah.
I take like element packets and I put salt in everything, part of the carnivore diet. But I also feel like the government regulations of 2 to 3 grams a day of sodium is not enough, especially if you have a fitness routine, if you use the sauna, if you're going outside for constant walks or you're in sports. I mean, there's just like recently I just watched a study on like how many grams of sodium a professional athlete can lose in an hour of basketball, or how much sodium we could lose in like an hour pickup game of basketball. It's like we can lose 6 grams of sodium from like an hour of, you know what I mean? Like, which is crazy. But then we're being told to only have 2 to 3 grams a day. Now, I think it's important to keep a good level of sodium. Obviously, with salt, with sodium intake, there's water retention again. But I think being hydrated is extremely underrated as far as what we're taught and know as of right now. So I think hydration, sodium, water, like water is probably the number one supplement as well that you should be taking. You should be not over drinking, but shooting for that half a gallon to a gallon a day or whatever. So, but sodium's important. I feel like sodium's very underrated, and I don't think you can necessarily within reason, I don't think you can necessarily overdo it. I take like 5 to 6 grams.
Great electrolyte.
Yeah.
I would, to your point though, about like say recommendations, like government recommendations aren't like the end all be all, because at the end of the day, it's all based off a 2,000 calorie diet, which if you're trying to lose weight, depending on obviously where you're starting, it all depends, right? Like if you're a huge dude, you're not eating 2,000 calories a day. If you're trying to maintain your healthy body weight, or if you're a super small person, again, it might not be 2,000 calories a day. Like they say you should have 50 grams of protein a day, and you're all square. Like I don't eat 50 grams of protein a day. You eat 50 grams of protein at breakfast alone.
I don't know. I think if you're listening to the government regulations at all regarding food intake and like the food pyramid and all that stuff, like we could have a whole nother conversation on that. But do your own research and figure out what your body needs, and don't be listening to the FDA that doesn't do a very good job at what they do anyways, and the government regulations like on the nutrition facts and all that stuff, because I just feel like the nutrition game is going to be changing as a whole, but sodium is very underrated, and I think sodium is one of those things that 2 to 3 grams a day isn't going to cut it. If you're being active, if you sit around all day and get no steps in, 2 to 3 grams is probably fine. But if you get a workout in, if you work out for 45 minutes a day, if you get 10,000 steps in a day, if you use the sauna, if you go for a swim, whatever, I mean, we are going through that electrolyte, and that's a very important one to keep in us. So
I was saying sports nutrition looks a hell of a lot different than the average human nutrition that is maybe only getting the bare minimum, say, physical activity or their guidelines. Like they are only doing low intensity cardio, which might be walking. It might just be their day-to-day job. So like you mentioned, especially for athletes, like your nutrition looks completely different. Like I would make different caffeine recommendations and everything along those lines, but obviously that looks a lot different. NCAA is kind of, you got a lot of holes to jump through, loops to jump through.
For sure. Well, I think that gives you guys a pretty good insight or a good start to where Chase and I, feel, a pretty good insight to how Chase and I feel about supplements and nutrition and kind of some good things and our input on what you can be doing on a day-to-day basis, how you can improve your performance a little bit. Again, I think a lot of these things are like not necessarily non-negotiable, but things that you should definitely do your own research. I also would recommend doing like one thing at a time. Like if I say take a multivitamin and you're like, oh, I want to try one now, just try the multivitamin for like a month or like a couple weeks and track how you change and how you react to it. And I don't think any of these is going to be like a miracle drug where you just wake up and everything's amazing. But, try fish oil for a month. Try magnesium or zinc or, do your own research and figure out what works for you. If you take them all at the same time, you might not notice any difference. You might notice a great difference, but you have no idea what's really playing an effect. And I think everybody's a little bit different. So do your own research, kind of figure that out. Make sure you're understanding like what your body should be taking in for caffeine. Make sure you should be, I know I talked even a little bit about sleep and stuff like that, but just figure out what you need to do, again, to be the best version of yourself and how you perform the best and that kind of stuff. So I think we're going to kind of leave off the episode here. I think we'll obviously talk more about nutrition and diet and supplements in the future. I'll try to do a little bit more research on my thoughts on caffeine and sleep and how that affects once I kind of finish the current book I'm reading, Why We Sleep.
I think anything we mentioned, you could get into a whole debate on, or at least get better insight to, like strictly talking. I mean, you could talk just about like,
you could talk about creatine for an episode, right?
You could talk about creatine for an episode, like what the applications are.
Yeah.
But again, that's for another episode. I think for today, it gives you a good baseline idea of what you take, what their benefits are, what I think you should take if you're really just looking to, again, improve performance-wise.
I appreciate you guys hopping on today. Today is episode 13 of many. We're going to keep her going 2 a week, every Tuesday and Thursday. G is going to remain in the producer chair, getting some good episodes done. Chase is going to continue joining me. We're going to continue practicing, having conversations back and forth, just working on that aspect. Again, I think by episodes 40, 50, 60, we're going to have a much different flow to this. We're going to be videoing it. Like there's just going to be a change of pace on how this all plays out together. So if you guys want to add me on Snapchat, colton.burt, Colton.Burt. Instagram and Facebook is ColtonBurt19. Otherwise, search me on Facebook at Colton, just Colton Burt. Our email is marketing@fitnessgrizzly.com. Make sure you go back and listen to episode 11 if this is your first episode, because there is something cool and fun about the end of episode 11. And go back and listen to episode 1 through 4 if you've never been here before, but we appreciate you. I'll let Chase kind of finish off with his socials, and we will see you on the next episode.
If you're looking for me on Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, the like all across there, it's CHASEMASTRICOLA.
Appreciate it.